things that really we diverged from in terms of those policies, and so they knew that they could be open in Florida and be successful, and so they have already opened gyms in the state of Florida, and then have their headquarters here. They have now announced plans to open 100 health clubs across the state of Florida, so it's exciting. And so we do have Andrew Alfano, who's the CEO. We also have many members of the Retro Fitness team. I don't know if they're behind. I saw some of them back there. I saw, yeah, there we go. I also saw they have like a big breakfast spread, so any of those folks doing that are going to have to get on that bike afterwards. That's fine. We've got Dane Eagle, Department of Hospitality and Bayou and Calveras Cantina, also joined by one of his chefs, Nelson Colon, so I want to thank them for coming. We're also joined by Ryan Walpole, who's the Vice President of Walpole, Inc., and one of his truck drivers, Kirk Corwin. We have Senator Gail Harrell, Representative Rick Roth, John Snyder. Is Caruso here? And John Snyder. So we're here to make a couple announcements about Florida's progress. Obviously, we've and so we're currently in the fiscal year 2021-2022. It ends June 30th. So when you do the budget every year, you do it based really off the forecast of what people are assuming the revenues coming into the state are going to be. And so we signed population-wise is New York. They have 3 million fewer people than we do. Their budget's over twice the size of our budget. Now, they don't have better roads or services or education or any of that, but they definitely have way more. And so, our budget, even though we've never done more for education, we've never done more for environment, we've never done more for infrastructure, all those things really important. But we're doing it in ways that are fiscally prudent. But at the same time, you don't necessarily know how the economy performs and everything until you get. So we're now about 6 weeks to go in this current fiscal year, and we could report definitively, the state of Florida for fiscal year 21-22 will have by far the largest budget surplus in the history of our state. And you can kind of see, like, when I became governor, and then we've gone up every year, and so it's likely to be probably over 21 billion because we're going to get the May numbers in, and then the June, and it's coming over estimate every month. But even if we somehow just did a big about face, we would still clear the $20 billion. And so what that is it's all state money. People say there's no federal money in that. It is mostly just unallocated general revenue. It does include over $3 billion for our rainy day fund. It also includes half a billion dollars that we've set aside to respond to disasters, and in the event that happens, we'll be able to do it. And then there is some money that are unallocated balances for some of our state trust funds, but at the end of the day, that represents about 20% of the total amount of the budget. And so you look at in Washington, they're running massive deficits that represent a huge portion of their budget. We have massive surplus. And so this would not have happened had we listened to a lot of the people that were criticizing us for keeping businesses open, keeping people employed, keeping kids in school. Those were obviously the right decisions. They were decisions that other states were not following, and most states were not. Certainly Fauci did not want to see this happen. But, you got to do what's right. And so now we're in a situation where, we've never had a stronger fiscal position in the state's history. So we also this morning announced the jobs report for the state of Florida for the month of April. And so in April alone, Florida added another 57,000 jobs. And so that's an increase of 0.7%, which is twice the rate of increase of the nation as a whole. And that includes almost $20,000 in leisure and hospitality industry and over 12,000 jobs in trade, transportation, and utilities. Our unemployment rate in the state of Florida is now 3%, which is far below the national average of 3.6%. And our unemployment rate has been lower than the national average for 17 consecutive months. Employers in Florida have now 24 consecutive months where we've had private sector job growth, and our private sector growth has exceeded the nation's for over a year. And I think even, somewhat more importantly, if you look at some of the dislocations we see in other parts of the country and even around the world, our labor force grew by 30,000 people. The nation as a whole lost 363,000 people from the workforce. And so as your workforce is expanding and your unemployment rate is dropping, that's when you know that you have a lot of opportunities. If the workforce expands or contracts like it did nationally, you could have a decline in the unemployment. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're adding a robust amount of jobs. And so even as we were seeing the unemployment rate drop, that was as the labor force was growing in the state of Florida, and that's what you want to see. Now, some of what's powering this is leisure and hospitality. And when COVID hit, people were saying Florida was going to end up suffering. Florida and Hawaii were going to be the two states that had the most significant economic damage because we were such a tourism-based state. And you had international travel ground to a halt. There were a lot of things that were far beyond our control. But I think what we did by setting the course to be a free state, the people that wanted to travel, there's really only one main option to do Florida. People had to come. I mean, there was really... And so when COVID hit, people were saying that this would take 4 or 5 years to be able to get to where we were pre-COVID in terms of our tourism numbers. In fact, between January and March of this year, we had 36 million visitors. That's far above our 2019 levels. And so we're recovered and then some. And part of it was being open, but part of it was also proactive steps that we took to protect people's quality of life. I mean, for example, in early 2021, I think we were the first state in the country to ban vaccine passports in our state. And I remember at the time some people said, well, wait a minute, if a business wants to if a hotel wants passports, they're private, they should be able to do it, and that's not actually the way to look at it. First of all, I care about the freedom of the individual to participate in society more than I care about corporate freedom. But two, most businesses wouldn't have wanted to do this. But if you have one that does it, then people would say Florida had passports. And I can tell you one of the reasons why we've done so well is because people can come here and you can go where you want, do what you want. You're not going to get shaken down to produce medical papers at the front door of a restaurant. People don't want to do that. I mean, honestly, it's just... And I think the proof in the pudding on this is our market share of overseas travelers. And so in pre-COVID, we had about 24% of the overseas market would come to Florida, which was significant. We were not number one. New York was higher than us. Well, now we are now registering almost 45% of the market share for overseas travelers. So not only is this the highest market share in the country, it's a higher market share than any state has ever recorded since this has been recorded in our country's history. We are over 10 percentage points higher than the previous record. So in 2011, New York had 34.1% of market share. So we're over 10 points higher than that previous record, and we're now over 20 points higher than the number 2 state for 2021, which was New York at 22%. And so I think that shows these foreign travelers, okay, where are they going? They're overwhelmingly wanting to come and vacation in Florida. And so we're proud of that. And it means, yes, it means part of that with the tourism, businesses being open, the job numbers, all that. But it's also meaning you have so many people throughout our state that can put food on the table. And if our industry, if we had Fauci'd the tourism industry in Florida, you would have had so many people that would have been not even able to provide. And it would have been very difficult to dig out of a really deep hole. It kind of builds on itself. And so we really stepped up and have helped a lot of folks. And you see us compared to the nation as a whole, it really speaks for itself in terms of what we've been able to do. Now, this is important in and of itself. These are people's livelihoods. These are people's businesses, and we've stood by them. But it's also positioned us better to be able to protect Floridians against what very well may be a recession induced by the Biden administration. And if you think about what's happened since he became president, he's indulged in a series of policy errors that have hurt our economy and made life more difficult for the average American and the average Floridian. They have an energy policy that is deliberately trying to suppress production here in the United States, even though they inherited a country that was energy independent for the first time in an awful long time. And so you're working to reduce supply, you're canceling leases, you're making it more difficult for folks to produce domestically. Now you will go and want to buy from Maduro, because I guess you'll say that only American oil and gas is global warming, but Maduro's is somehow not. I don't know how that makes any sense, but that's the mindset. And so it's a deliberate attempt to make prices higher. And you actually have people testifying in front of Congress saying, is this a problem with the high prices? And they garble their words. And the reason is they want higher prices, because their view is you need to be punished for using this carbon, and you need to just go out and buy an electric car. So, I mean, think about it. You have people now, gas is going to hit $5 a gallon very soon. And their message from the Biden administration to Americans who are chafing under dramatic increase in fuel costs is to go spend $65,000 on an electric car. That is totally out of touch, I think, with the realities that people are dealing with. But it's not just the pain at the pump. When you have energy prices going up the way they are, that permeates the entire economy. It permeates all the logistics, all the production, and so that fuels the general inflation rate. And what we're seeing with overall inflation, huge spikes, yes, in energy, but also in food, also in utilities, also in things that are just important staples of day-to-day lives. I mean, the only thing that's under 8.5% are things that really aren't as pertinent to the average person. So if you looked at the true inflation for people in terms of what they're doing in their daily lives, it's much higher than 8.5%. And so when you have that, and they said it wouldn't happen, but they came in and they printed trillions of dollars, and they were warned not to do this, even by Democrat economists telling them don't do this. It's going to cause inflation. They did it anyways. And just think about it. You've printed trillions and trillions of dollars. You've sparked inflation. But if it wasn't for like a Joe Manchin, they would have done trillions more. They were trying to print trillions more, and they basically just didn't have the votes in the U.S. Senate to do it. The House of Representatives passed massive more printing of money. They just didn't able to get it through the Senate. So I think if they had passed that, we'd have 15 to 20% inflation most likely. And so they were, as bad as it is, they wanted to make it even worse. And so what's going to happen is They said inflation wouldn't happen. Then they said it was just a blip. Then they said this. They blame Putin, although you look, all these other industrial countries, there's a lot of them that don't have the inflation rate that we do. So they're just trying to find a scapegoat. But I think what's going to happen, you're seeing interest rates go up. You're going to probably continue to see that. That's going to put a downward pressure on the growth of the economy, and you very well could end up seeing this country plunged into a recession. And so I hope that doesn't happen, but I think our job in here in the state of Florida is to make sure that we're positioned to deal with some of these things that are beyond our control and protect Floridians as best we can. So yes, we can't control what Washington's doing. We can't control a lot of these policies that have been very destructive. But when you have those types of reserves, fiscal reserves, if we did have a slowdown and our revenue came in less, I don't have to change anything. We do education, all the stuff we're doing, you just take some of that and you plug the holes wherever you have it. So we'll be able to be, from a state's perspective and our fiscal and budget, we're going to be in great shape regardless, and we're ready. And I do think that if we end up seeing a Biden-induced recession, I think that because of the environment we've created, my hope is that we're able to withstand that better than some of these other states. You look at the last big recession in 2008, Florida was one of the worst performing states with that. I mean, we got totally smacked with that recession. Texas and some other states, they felt it, but they were able to get through it much better. And I think because of all the great things we've been able to do with the economy, we're better positioned to weather some of those storms. Again, I hope it doesn't happen. I really hope it doesn't. But, if he had just come in and done nothing, we would be better off than what he's done. I mean, so... And I do think if you see the gas prices, you had a little bit of a dip in April. I think it got down. I mean, in some parts of Florida, I saw it as low as 410. You can't even come close to that now, 3-4 weeks later. And part of it, China locked down Shanghai, so they weren't consuming as much, and so that had an impact. And so now you're in a situation where you see this rising again. And I think here in Florida, it's gone up. And there's a lot of states in the West Coast, they're all over $5 a gallon. And they've been that way really for many, many weeks. And so it's heading that way across the country. And we're not even at summer driving season yet. I mean, you're going to have Memorial Day coming up here in a little bit, and then during the summer. And so without them reversing course, I mean, you're looking at probably the norm for the next many months to probably be $5 a gallon. And that's going to have a huge impact on a lot of people's family budgets. And so we're happy that we're doing it right in Florida. We're making the good decisions. The results are obviously very positive, but we're mindful about these storms brewing on the horizon out of Washington, D.C. And we're prepared from a budget perspective, and also we're really hopeful that that we can get through this without having any more of these major policy miscalculations, because they've been very costly to a lot of people, and they're likely to continue snowballing from here without them reevaluating. Okay, we're going to hear from some folks here. So first, we'll hear from our CEO of Retro Fitness. Come on, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you and welcome to the brand new Retro Fitness Support Center. We appreciate everybody being here and appreciate your support, Governor. Retro Fitness today is seen as the leader in the high-value, low-price fitness space, and I'm very proud to stand here and say that today we now have 175 clubs open or in development across 9 different states, but specifically here in the great state of Florida. A little bit about Retro Fitness. We offer our members high-value exercise, health, and fitness at very affordable prices. But why we're here today, and from a business perspective, it's really important to note Retro Fitness is a 100% franchise organization. Said differently, every one of our clubs, very different than the 2,000 club big box chains that you might see out there, every one of our clubs is individually owned and operated by a single franchisee. When we come to a town in Florida, we not only build a community inside the four walls of our clubs, we truly become a fabric of the community outside of the four walls of the clubs. And there's no greater example of this than Ed Gerardo. Ed, who's right over here. Ed Gerardo is one of our newest franchisees. Great example, Ed lives in Wellington. He's your friend, he's your neighbor, happens to be a great guy, which helps. He is also the newest owner of Retro Fitness in Wellington, and will be open in a couple of weeks. So Ed, congratulations in advance of your opening. Please pay him a visit if you're in that area. As the governor mentioned, the very first thing I did in 2019 when I became the CEO was I moved the company from New Jersey to right here, West Palm Beach, Florida. This was large in part because Florida, simply put, is a business-friendly state. Very quickly, we have developed tremendous relationships with all of state leadership. And operating in 9 different states, I will tell you, we have a great opportunity to see the lens of how other states operate. There is no greater relationship we have with state leadership in any of the other states, including the state that we just left. In short, Florida is built for opportunity. We're very excited to be here. What a lot of people don't realize about fitness is that on a national level, the fitness industry was the first to close, and it was the last industry to open. But in the state of Florida, Governor DeSantis recognized the importance of exercise, health, and fitness. And Florida was the very first state to reopen gyms and health clubs, recognizing the importance of getting people healthy. So, Governor, thank you very much for that. And because of the governor and because of state policies, I will share that not only do we survive the pandemic, Retro Fitness is coming out of the pandemic thriving and in growth mode. And last week, very excited to share that we made a big announcement that we had the biggest investment in the history of Retro Fitness. BlackRock and their Impact Opportunities Fund invested in our new initiative, Project Lift. Project Lift, simply put, is about investing in black and brown communities across the state in the form of exercise, health, and fitness. And when I'm now, as CEO and working in partnership with these investors, we had an opportunity to invest that capital anywhere. But we directed that capital right here to Southeast Florida. There is a minimum commitment of Southeast Florida from Miami up to Jupiter of 30 clubs. And Retro Fitness, as the governor mentioned, I have a goal of a minimum of 100 clubs across the state of Florida so we can bring exercise, health, and affordable fitness to the entire state and the people of Florida. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, I never understood with these, quote, experts with a respiratory virus that is not nearly as lethal for young people or people that are in really good shape, that you would want to not have gyms open. I mean, I just, you know, so this data is coming in, and I'm like, you know what? The best thing you can do is go to the gym. If you go to the gym, you're going to be fine if you keep stay in shape. And yet their message was, particularly those first few months of COVID, was sit on your couch, to eat takeout, and watch Netflix all day. I mean, that's not a good message for health. So we were happy that we were, protecting these folks. And I remember, you would have Fauci, all these people criticizing Florida because we had gyms open and all this other stuff. But you know what? That was the right decision from a health perspective. And health is more than just avoiding one specific pathogen. I mean, you got to stay healthy for a variety of reasons. And I think you've seen some of the other health indicators really go in the bad direction, particularly in other states, because they were basically told this was the only thing, this one respiratory virus was the only thing that matters. And you've seen excess mortality, particularly in lockdown states, of non-COVID excess deaths And I think it's a combination of a lot of these really bad policies. And so we think it was essential. I remember very early on, I'm saying, you know, don't just stay in your house, go for walks, do all. They were like, oh, DeSantis is, you know, be so dangerous that he wants people to get out of the house and play golf or go to the beach and all that. But I mean, that was the right thing to do, and we're happy to have led on that. Okay, so we are going to hear from Curtis and Nelson from Voodoo Bayou and Calaveras Cantina.
It's an honor to be here today. We have a really interesting story. We opened our second restaurant location 1 week before the shutdown. If you can imagine putting your life savings in, spending a year developing something, putting it all on the line, and then 1 week later, you hire 120 employees, train them, get ready to open, and all of a sudden you get shut down. So it was a time of extreme uncertainty. We pivoted, did takeout, to-go drinks, did everything we could to stay alive. And during that time, Nelson, one of my line chefs, he would show up every single day, you know, and didn't ask for anything. So I'm really grateful for him, and he's just one of the amazing stories from our employees. But anyway, two months later, due to the governor, we were allowed to reopen. And since then, it's been an amazing story. We've actually opened another restaurant after that. And right now we have 360 employees. We're opening another Voodoo Bayou in Fort Lauderdale on Los Olas Boulevard and adding another 120 employees there. And we're also opening another restaurant in Orlando. I mean, the rebound has just been absolutely astronomical. I can't tell you how grateful I am to the governor. All of our employees are incredibly grateful. I mean, it was truly an incredible thing. It was a bold move on your part, and I think that's what leadership's all about. It's about having faith and, you know, believing in your decisions and making those decisions. I mean, without you, we wouldn't have anything. So I want to say thank you.
My name is Chef Nelson Colon. I'm from Puerto Rico, so hallelujah. Cooking is my theme music also. We want to say thank you to the governor here, sir, because without his help, we go nowhere. And if you want to work, come to Florida. This is the place. We have the best food, best gym. My gym is the kitchen, so I work every 5 seconds everywhere. And I've been with Mr. Curtis 16 years, wonderful years, and I never miss to pay my bills with this guy. So that's very important. So you want to come with the best, come with us. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
You know, we're really proud of really working with the restaurant industry. They were targeted by people like Fauci. They were just supposed to be closed forever. I mean, like, that's just not. And so our view was, you know, everyone has a right to work. The chefs, the servers, all these folks, the businesses have a right to be open. And then you as an individual can choose to go or not to go as you deem appropriate. And so if that is something that you believe is very risky environment, then by all means, make whatever decision's best for you, but to kneecap them and not let them do. So we were able to really make sure to clear the way from them. And it wasn't really the state in terms of what we were, but it was like making sure local governments couldn't shut them down. I mean, that was really the key thing, to say you can't shut them down on a local level. And so that gave, I know, a lot of people an ability to get in business, hire a lot of people, get people back to work. But then also the number of new restaurants that have started. I mean, like, there's no place that's doing better for restaurants than the state of Florida. It's just a really good place to be for it. There's a lot of demand, and they know that they have the ability to do it. And so we were, really happy. I remember we did an event summer of 2020 close by at Okeechobee Steakhouse. And, because you had all these people saying, you can't have restaurants open, all this other stuff. And you know what? Listen to the bartender, listen to the butcher, listen to all these people. what would happen if they weren't able to have a job or come to work. And a lot of people didn't care about that, but we cared about it, and we wanted to make sure that they were able to put food on the table for their families. And so we were proud of standing with that industry, and we're also proud to just see how it's blossomed in the state of Florida over the last 2 years in particular. We're also proud of what we've been able to do to protect people's jobs from COVID vax mandates. And you had a number of people. You had a number of people advocating policies that you shouldn't be allowed to work unless, you get this COVID vax. And then it would be, boosters infinitum, and if you got vaxxed but didn't want a booster, then you would lose your job. And we said that's unacceptable in the state of Florida. People have a right to make their decisions on this and should not be tied to their ability to earn a living. So we did a special session of the legislature when it looked like people may start to lose their jobs, and we provided protections, and we saved tens of thousands of jobs throughout the state of Florida by taking action on that. And the thing about it is, it's not right to do, and it's not right for anyone to lose their job over this, but some of the people in the most critical industries that we have shortages of, you would have basically been saying that they can't do. So you look at healthcare and these nurses. A lot of those nurses did not want to do a COVID shot. Many of them have had COVID and have immunity through prior infection, which the CDC wouldn't recognize for a year and a half, almost 2 years, and now they only begrudgingly recognize it. But that's just kind of a basic evidence-based principle. So we protected, we don't enforce the CMS mandate. They are able to go on Florida law and claim whatever exemption they want to stay employed. But what ended up happening is you had states around the country that would fire the unvaccinated nurses, and then they'd have shortages. And so you would have nurses who had already recovered from COVID, were perfectly healthy, but didn't get vaccinated. They would not bring them in to fill spots, but they would bring in nurses who had gotten the shot, but were currently COVID positive. So they're actually bringing COVID positive nurses back to work because we know you can still spread it even if you had to. And that just shows you, how insane this was, that you would be doing that. And it wasn't about health at that point. It was about authority and power, and it was more of an ideology. And so we were happy to be able to do that. And now you have a lot of people that want to be nurses in Florida and these other positions. But another one was the truck drivers. They wanted to fire these truck drivers based on COVID vax. And so we made sure to protect that. You lose even 5% of your truck drivers. Do you think that's going to help the supply chain problems that we're seeing? I mean, people can't get the materials that they need because of all the nonsense that's happened throughout this country and even throughout the world. So we were happy to be able to do that and protect the jobs of a number of people. So we have one of the truck drivers with us here today with Walpole, Kirk Corwin.
How y'all doing? Thank you. Very important to truck drivers we're kind of like nomads, and to be told everything we need to do is kind of hard for us. Me personally, I couldn't take the vaccine, so I would have lost my job. And also, I was injured for a long time, got back to work, or trying to get back to work. The state actually gave me $5,000 to go to truck driving school, was able to get a job, pay off all my bills, and now I've been working for Walpole for 10 months. I have savings. I have more money now than I've had over the last 7 years. So. Thank you very much.
Okay, our Department of Economic Opportunity Secretary, Dane Eagle.
The governor was able to announce some pretty staggering numbers this morning. Unemployment rate at 3.0% compared to the nation at 3.6%. The job growth continuing to trend above the nation. Today's numbers showing it's double the nation's. Workforce growth continuing to trend above the nation. We're growing while the nation's shrinking. But if the proof isn't in the numbers, it's in the stories you just heard here today. people finding sanctuary and working in Florida and finding economic freedom, and that's incredible. Folks are leaving New Jersey, New York, California in droves. We are the #1 state for net migration in the entire United States, thanks to Governor DeSantis' policies. So our unemployment rate today of 3.0% compares to New York at 4.6%, California 4.9%. That is staggering. That's incredible. But if you put Florida alone on an island, you compare us to other countries, pre-pandemic, we were the 17th largest economy in the entire world. Now that's incredible. However, 17th pre-pandemic, over the past year we surpassed Mexico and Indonesia. We are now the 15th largest economy in the world, $1.1 trillion GDP. Again, thank you to Governor DeSantis. With the governor at the helm, Florida's going to continue to lead in economic growth. Thank you, Governor.
All righty. So we're proud of the progress we've made. Obviously, we've got more to do. We're going to be doing a special session next week to deal with problems with homeowners insurance. I think we'll be able to get get a good product there. Because it's been a problem for a long time, and so we'll do that. We'll also continue doing what we're doing to expand opportunities for career education and the skilled trades. You see the truck driving. We've expanded slots for driving school, commercial driver's license dramatically over the last 2 years. We've added 50 apprenticeships for various types of trades, and that really is helping us expand manufacturing in the state of Florida. We've made targeted infrastructure investments as well. We've also been leading on other issues as they come down the pike. So we were very outspoken about the creation of this Disinformation Bureau in the Department of Homeland Security. And, so they do this, which in and of itself is a total farce, but then they put this person in there who is just totally off her rocker, has been peddling misinformation for years, and they're going to basically have that office be the arbiter of what's true and what's not. And it was pretty obvious their attempt to do that was to simply say whatever they say is true and whatever we say is not. And they didn't want people to be able to dissent, and they wanted to be able to silence or marginalize people that were speaking out against their policies. And that is not an appropriate use of the federal government. I didn't think that they were necessarily going to enforce directly on Americans if you were speaking, but I think what they were planning to do was give to the social media companies whatever they considered to be disinformation or misinformation, and then have the social media companies like Facebook and Google and Twitter be, until Elon Musk gets it, if he gets it, that they would then put a warning label on, take the post down, suspend you, whatever they would do. And so it was an attempt to try to control debate, and it was an attempt to try to stifle dissent. And they got a lot of blowback on it, and so now they've had to step back from that. Now, I think strategically, they probably haven't thrown in the towel completely. I think they realized that they did not do a good job choosing the head of this, and that opened himself to some obvious criticism. So, but I don't think that we've seen the end of it. I think you have an impulse in the Biden administration, and quite frankly in these legacy media outlets in like Washington and New York. They believe that what they say is what should be shoved down the throat of the public, and that the rest of us should just take it and not point out that they're lying. And so we're going to make sure people in Florida can speak out. We did last year the first bill signed into law, the first bill to protect Floridians from big tech censorship. They sued on it, and we knew. They immediately sued. The district judge did an injunction. We appealed it. We had a hearing in the 11th Circuit a few weeks ago. It went very well. So we don't know what will end up happening on that opinion, but I feel confident that core parts of that are going to be upheld. And for me, my view is that if they lure you into their platforms because they say, hey, it's an open platform, they take your data and make a lot of money off it, and then the minute you say something they don't like, they silence you, that's a consumer fraud. And so we want to give the people of Florida the ability to sue big tech if that happens to them. I think that would be a useful check against their power. But this Disinformation Bureau was a total disaster. The fact that they would even propose this really should raise questions about who is running this administration and what their designs are. So we're glad that partially through our pressure and I think a lot of outrage across the country that they've had to retreat on that. But I don't think this battle is over, and I think the battle for free speech is going to continue. We also are helping lead the way to protect Floridians from the effects of Biden's open border policies. And we just signed a bill yesterday that is going to make sure that people that are dealing fentanyl and the analogs are going to go to prison for a long time because it's killing people. And if you look at what's happened since January of 2021, over 2 million people illegally coming across the southern border. You've had huge amounts of sex trafficking and human trafficking, and you've never had more fentanyl coming across the border than you've had. And 90% of all the fentanyl in our country comes from the southern border. China's making most of it, but it all ends up being brought in through that southern border. And so Biden's policy is basically to let it rip and to let them bring in all this fentanyl. And so the result of that in 2021, the number one cause of death for people 18 to 45 was fentanyl overdose. So this is having a devastating impact on a lot of individuals and families throughout our country and including here in the state of Florida. And so what we did is kind of one step. We've got a bill that we're going to be signing that's going to penalize any of these contractors that are dumping any illegal aliens into the state of Florida from the southern border. And then we do have money for relocation to Delaware and other states. So we're going to... But I mean, at the end of the day, it's an issue that has been, so this is why it's so frustrating. The gas prices wouldn't be where they were if they had not done what they did to try to really disfavor energy production. Inflation wouldn't be where it was if they had not printed trillions and trillions of dollars. The border, we would not have the problems at the border if they just would have kept Trump's policies at the border. But they revoked those policies, which had been, and there still needs to be wall and all that. I mean, there's not, there's part of it built, but not enough. So there was more that needed to be done. But even if they just would have just kept the current policies, you would not have had it. And then if they revoked this Title 42, of all the things, that has actually led to a lot of people being turned back to Mexico. You take that off, that's going to be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people very quickly, and I got to think that that's going to help the cartels be able to move more product into the United States. I said the other day, the cartels should make Biden an honorary member because nobody has done more to help them than Biden and his policies. And so these are really significant. I mean, first of all, a country that can't even control its own borders is a joke. And it's just a basic attribute of sovereignty that you're able to determine who's coming and who's not. And that's whether there was a lot of drugs or no drugs. It's just a principle that we control who comes in and who doesn't, and they're not following the law, and he's not satisfying his oath of office to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. So, that's a really, really significant thing. But then all the negative impacts that we're seeing, and, you see it everywhere. We see it in Florida. People act like, oh, you're not a border state. A lot of the people coming across are trying to get to Florida. And a lot of the people coming across are from all over the world. I mean, you got people from the Middle East, you got people from the Caribbean, you got people from all over. And this is kind of the ticket to come in illegally. So it's a big problem. We're going to continue we're going to have some more announcements with respect to illegal immigration probably within the next couple of weeks. We look forward to being able to do that. But in the meantime, part of the reason we're able to get a little money in next year's budget, which I'll probably have done sometime in June, we'll get access to that. that's part of the reason we're able to do that, because we've managed it well. The economy in Florida is a place people have confidence in terms of investing. There's a lot of jobs available for people. So we're fighting against all the D.C. headwinds, but I think we're doing a better job than just about any state out there. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thanks.